Hi, Danville. Alan Schultz here, Chief of Police for the town, and we are 10-8 in service, which means we're here to deliver superior municipal services that make people's lives better. And we do that by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. Going to cover 2 weeks. I went on vacation last week, so we missed last week's show. but we will have a lot of information here. I do want to thank everyone. We did post a link to Officer Twan Lee's condolence page from the Oakland Police Department. He was killed responding to a burglary call in Oakland. And you all, as Danville does, show a great deal of support. So thank you to all of you. We did have a request for his GoFundMe page, so we put that in that link as well. So if you're interested, go ahead and check the Facebook site there, and there's a link there for him. All right, thank you all for that. All right, so we're going to have a lot of information to cover, so please make sure you stay till the end. We're going to cover the crime. We're going to cover the traffic accidents, which actually was really low. Good job, Danville. We're going to cover some crime prevention tips on how to avoid having your car stolen. Some of the tips won't shock you at all. And then we're going to cover a little bit of the update that Lieutenant Heather Transu gave back in December. All right, so let's move on to some of the things that we should all have in our sideboard or coffee table, wherever you have in your house that you keep those important documents that you rarely look at. But download the FEMA All Hazards Checklist. This is a good guide to show you what you can do in those very infrequent but high risk events. It can show you how to protect yourself before, how to survive during, and then what you can do afterwards to make sure that you're safe. Also download the All Hazard or the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide by the Contra Costa County Office of the Sheriff. And also sign up for our community warning system. Most of you have signed up for our Nixle system. In major catastrophic events, we're also going to be using our community warning system, and there's other avenues that we can reach you by using CWS. It's a pretty powerful platform. In the Wildfire Guide, you'll see that there's information on how to prepare yourself, your family, and even your pets should something bad happen. And then go to PG&E's website. There's a lot of good information in there on what you can do to be prepared should there be a power outage or something similar. So we really do encourage people to go to that website and check it out. This is a live show, so if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. We monitor both Facebook and YouTube, so if you've got something there, just go ahead and put your question in there. If I get to it live during the show, I'll get to it live. If not, I will be sure to answer it in the chat afterwards. All right. On to the crime. CommunityCrimeMap.com. This is where you can go and you can get information on what's happening in your neighborhood or around town, frankly, around the county. And you can also get sexual offender registry there, information there as well. Now, I put 2 weeks on one slide for collisions, and there just wasn't much there. So you had 2 injury collisions, 2 property collisions. The property collisions, one was on the 20th, and that was at Comunitas Area and Sycamore Valley Road. And that's those are the green dots. And then the other non-injury collision was on Fostoria Way in Camille Ramon. That's down by Costco. The two injury collisions, and I don't know if you're new to the show, you may never have seen this before. It's that little number 2 at the very top of the screen. That means there's 2 items stacked on top of each other, so the very exact same location. So on the 18th and then the 31st, so a couple weeks apart, we had an injury collision at Diablo Road and Green Valley Road. So 2 separate collisions, 2 separate dates, exact same location. All right, we're going to move on to crime. So for the first week before my vacation, we seemed to do pretty well. We had 2 package thefts, and that was it. We had no violent crime, which is great. That's what we love to see. One of the packages was stolen, or several packages actually were stolen from one location on the 3400 block of Fostoria Drive. Our officer who responded was actually able to do some investigative work and identify the suspect in that case. So we're working to file charges on that case. And then on the 20th, there were packages that were stolen from a home on Danville Oak Place. And I will say this, we do have our bait package out there. And I don't know what to say, but wherever we put our bait package, and that's a package that looks like an Amazon-style box, sits on someone's porch in town. It's got a GPS tracker in it. It's connected to our computers. It's connected into our dispatch. Apparently, if I put that package on your porch, you will never have a package stolen because we've never had it stolen, and it's out there most of the year, every year for like the last 4 or 5 years that we've been using these GPS trackers. But it seems to be criminal repellent right now because we can't get our package stolen. But know that we are doing proactive things to try to prevent these packages from being stolen. And so we are working on that. All right. The next week, not so great. So after Christmas hit, it seemed like everything went to the wayside. During that time, we had an aggravated assault, 4 thefts, and 4 vehicle thefts. Actually, it's more than 4. We'll cover them. There's 2 slides here. The first one on the 25th, we had a felony assault, and this was an argument that was kind of started inside the vehicle between two people. The felony assault occurred on Camino Tassera and Blackhawk Road. That person was arrested and sent to jail. On the 25th, we had theft of alcohol from Bevmo. Now, on the 26th, we had quite a bit of crime. It seems to all be related. On the 200 block of Remington Loop and on Love Lane at Lamont Way, we had two vehicles that were stolen. And then we recovered a stolen vehicle right down the street from one of the ones that was stolen on Remington Loop. And then in that same area, we had a theft of a garage door opener from a vehicle that was unlocked on Loch Lomond Way. And then on the 28th, a couple days later, we had a theft of two vehicles from the 100 block of Monterey Drive. Both were located in Fremont the same day. And we had a theft of merchandise from a business on the 700 block of Camino Ramon, and then a theft of property from an unlocked vehicle on Via Sema. On the 29th, we had a shoplifting, and this was some merchandise on the actually, it was kind of expensive merchandise on the 300 block of Harts Avenue. And the reason it's classified as a burglary, and so I put that on there because that is our burglary for that week. If a criminal were to enter a store and then come up with the intent to steal after entering the store, that's not a burglary, that's a simple theft. But based on the officer's investigation, he felt like this person entered the store, did certain things that led him to believe that the person entered the store with the intent to commit this higher value theft, committed the theft and left, and that's why it's a burglary and not just simply a theft. And then we had, on the 29th, we also had a theft of property from an unlocked vehicle on Midland Way. On the 27th, we had an arrest of a man for possessing a stolen vehicle, possessing a loaded firearm, and resisting arrest. And then on the 30th, and that's not actually counted against our stats because he didn't steal the car from Danville. We recovered it here in Danville. And then on the 30th, we had a burglary of an unoccupied home on Macomber Road, over there on Macomber Road. Macomber's on the west side. So if you look at the map, I'm going to leave it up here for a second. I really want you to take a look at it. We had the one aggravated assault. I'll go back one slide. We had one aggravated assault, and that was on the east side of town there. That's the orange icon with the little boxing gloves on it. Everything else in Danville was basically 680 to the west, kind of in our downtown corridor area. And that's where it seemed like they were hitting. And our officers did. We have officers that kind of react to some of this. We've got officers that work all throughout town, so we don't just flood one area, but we do have officers that also respond and react to some of this. And as they were seeing this trend, they were working those areas as well. So it is something that we do look at. All right. That was me looking at Dina's message here. So Dina writes, I was an eyewitness to the theft at Marshall's on December 29th. The woman bumped me with all of her loot on our way out via the emergency exit. So that's not, unfortunately, Dina, that's not an uncommon way that we see these crimes happen. I was actually at Costco with my family, and maybe it's just me being a cop, but I asked them, okay, if something bad were to happen in the front of the store, and we're kind of back there by where all the muffins and the chickens are, they put the chickens all the way in the back. So we're back there, and I said, well, if something bad were to happen, where can you run to for safety, right? If it's in the front of the store, you're not going to run to the front to try to run past where hazards are. And nobody knew where to go. They were like, maybe I'd hide in the meat department or I'd hide over here. And I pointed out that there's a door in the back there. And frankly, the only reason I know the door is there is because of exactly what Dina witnessed at Marshall's next door. Is I know that people use that as a way to commit their theft. And so we have seen that. So Dina, I'm sorry you had to witness / be bumped by that. But thanks for letting us know. All right. So let's move on to the arrest log. Quite a few arrests, couple weeks. It's not a shock. We do make quite a few arrests here in town, but let's take a look at it. For the 18th through the 24th, on the 19th, we had a man that was cited for DUI on Camino Tassera and Wood Ranch Drive. And then on the 22nd, we had another man that was cited. And this one was on 2 warrants out of Contra Costa County. And that was on the 700 block of San Ramon Valley Boulevard. On the 23rd, we had another man that was cited for DUI on Green Valley Road and Stone Valley Road. And then on the 23rd, we booked a man in jail for trespassing on El Dorado Avenue. And then on the 23rd, we also had a man that was cited for trespassing and battery at a bar on Harts. On the 24th, we had a man that was cited, and this one had a warrant out of Santa Cruz County, and that was at the 400 block of Lagonda Way. And then for the 25th through the 31st, on Christmas, we had a man that was booked in jail for felony battery. That was mentioned in the slide before. And then on the 26th, we had a man that was cited for possessing drug paraphernalia. So that's usually what you use to smoke illegal drugs or inject illegal drugs. In this case, it was for smoking. On the 27th, there was arrest of a man for possessing a stolen vehicle, possessing a loaded firearm, and resisting arrest at the 500 block of Lagonda Way. And if you notice, put two and two together on that, the police department's at 500 Lagonda Way. So as it would happen, this person actually came off the freeway and parked right in our parking lot here, and that's where we found him. So pretty sad, right? That's who we arrested for possessing the stolen car and the loaded firearm and all that. So there's always been a joke in law enforcement that, you know, a criminal's never going to drive to the station and let you arrest him, right? You have to be in the field and kind of go where crime is. We talked about the west side of Danville, and so the expectation that the officers will be on that west side. And I think this criminal did this just to frustrate me and say, well, every once in a while, criminals will actually drive to the police department so you can arrest them and not have to go too far. So thank you to the criminal on that one. All right. Moving on with the arrest. We did have on the 29th, we arrested a man. A man was booked for trespassing on a home on Greenbrook Drive, and it was one of the same ones we arrested the week prior. And then on the 30th, we had a woman who was booked in jail for public intoxication, and she was arrested on Camaritas Court. And on the 30th, we had a woman who was booked for DUI and resisting arrest. And the stop was done on Sycamore Valley Road and Ceramon Valley Boulevard, but the resisting arrest actually took place here at the police department. And that is it. But if you look, a lot of this, and even some of the trespassing crimes that we arrested people for, a lot of them are alcohol related. And so if there's one thing I can look at that arrest log and extrapolate is if you know of people that are drinking too heavy, if you see someone that may be drinking too heavy or maybe making bad decisions while they're drinking, please encourage them to slow down, try to find another avenue. We're seeing a few more fights. We're seeing a little bit more on the DUI side. We're seeing the trespassing complaints that we're getting. And there's that thread of alcohol in all of them. So if you can work with your neighbors and help out, that would be great. So I thought 4 stolen cars, 2 in one neighborhood, 2 days later, 2 in another neighborhood, was pretty excessive. And so we wanted to look at it. And we've had upwards of 40, 50 stolen cars a year before. And we've been as low as, 15 or 20 in other years. So it's something that does fluctuate. And we know that if Danville is known for a place where it's very easy to steal cars, people are going to come. So you have to imagine, put yourself in the mind of the criminal. If you're the criminal and you come to town and you find that it's very easy to commit whatever your crime is, in this case, we're talking about stealing cars. It's very easy to steal cars. When you go back home and you talk to your friends or what we'll call coworkers, right? The people that do the same trade as you, what might you tell them? Hey, there's lots of good work. There's lots of good cars that are easy to steal in Danville. We want to send the message that no, they're not easy to steal. Don't come here. Don't do your crime here. So we wanted to do a review to show you what the methods were that people were committing these crimes. And what I'll ask you to do is as you hear this, I want you to kind of maybe type in the notes and let everyone else know what are some of the tips that you use to avoid having your car stolen. I know for me, my personal one is we try to, my wife is really good about getting on me, making sure the garage is really clean so we can park 2 cars in there. And that way there's only 1 car that's parked outside. So my biggest one is if they can't get to it, they can't steal it. And those cars are parked in a garage that has cameras and motion lights and all that. So that's one of the things that we do to avoid having our car stolen. But let's take a look at what these folks are doing to steal cars. And I'll break it down a little bit more detailed in the slide, but let's take a look. So last year for 2023, we had 36 cars that were stolen, and we reviewed those 36 cases. In prevalence, 14 of the cars were unlocked and the keys were in the car or like on a pegboard right next to it. But I believe in this year, they were all right next to it in the car. And so you have to imagine, especially with newer cars, if you leave your keys in the glove box, in the center console, all someone has to do is check the door handle. If it's unlocked, which usually if the keys are in newer cars, it'll be unlocked. If it's unlocked, they open the door. The first thing they do is step their foot on the brake and they push the little button. If it starts, they've got the keys. They don't actually have to even search and find your keys anymore. It's not, lifting the visor down. It's not checking the center console. None of that. They just enter the car, press the brake, hit the button, and if it starts, they know they've got your car. And so 14 of them were unlocked with keys in the car. 10, and these were some of the older vehicles, Chevys and Fords. These ones had their ignitions punched, and we saw that a lot in the beginning part of the year, January through like April. The unlocked keys in car, we've been seeing that over the past 3 months. That is by a wide margin the biggest cause for cars being stolen in the last quarter, fourth quarter of 23. The OBD2 port hack, I'll talk about that. We had 5 of those, 4 trailers, and that's a tough one to combat. And then 3 unusual circumstances. In other words, we're not really sure, but there's also missing keys. So we can kind of deduce that maybe we can kind of add it to that 14, and the keys were probably left in the car, but the owner didn't know for sure. Now on the trailers, that's a tough one. If you've got trailers that are parked out in the front area, you can get a tow hitch lock. So you can get a lock that goes on the tow hitch. You can get a clamp to go around the tire. That's what I use for our boat trailer. But the biggest thing is to make sure that the trailer itself is parked in a location where it's really hard to get to, even harder to even see. So backyard or something similar. Trailers that are out in the open tend to be the ones that are targeted the most. We don't usually find that people are going into backyards and doing that, but trailers can be pretty tough. A lot of it too, you can just take a U-lock, that you use for bikes, and you can use that in creative ways, either around the rim and tire or, some area of the trailer to keep it from being mobile. And that usually works. If you have a tongue that swings away, you can also pull the pin out of that. That makes it so it's unusable. So you can't really drive because the tongue won't stay in place. But trailers, 4 of them, so not high on the list. But let's take a look at what we can do to avoid having our cars stolen. So always lock them. A lot of these criminals, they'll go through our area, and what they're doing is they're just flipping door handles, and they're seeing what can they get into. And a lot of it is they're really just looking to steal the items from inside your car. But if they press that start button and it works, they're more than happy to take your car. And then consider keeping your cars in the garage if you can. Do not leave your keys in the car. That is probably the number one thing, because with these newer cars, aside from the OBD2 hack, it's really, really hard to steal. Consider some anti-theft devices, so alarms, things like that, maybe the club on the steering wheel. Secure your trailers with locks, and then keep an eye out and report any suspicious activity. So if you see somebody that's out maybe in your neighborhood and they're not doing what they should be doing, if they're sitting there, and I'll give you my personal tip. January 1st is a big day to go ride your bike in town. Some people may not like it. I love to ride my bike. And I was going up Mount Diablo. I was actually on my way back down, and I'm going down Blackhawk Road. And as I'm riding my bike, I see a car parked right in front of Still Creek, facing Blackhawk Road. And so it just looks suspicious to me. There's no real houses near there. The houses are a little further in. It's an unusual place to park, and the person wasn't even parked next to the curb, but wasn't also waiting for the stop sign. So I pull my bike in, take a picture of the car, and I send it to the duty sergeant and have them go check on them. And that's the kind of thing. If you see something that is suspicious in your neighborhood, you're the expert in your neighborhood, please report it. You're going to know better than anyone else what's out of place in your neighborhood. And please have the understanding that as the police, this just provides us an opportunity to go talk to someone, to say hello, to see what's going on. But we've had some pretty egregious burglaries in the past where there was flagrantly suspicious activity that went unreported. It was witnessed, but unreported. Even so far as where in one case, a big van, a white van, had backed into the neighbor's driveway. The suspects go to the front door, they knock, no one answers, they go around the back, then you see the garage door open, and they're loading property into the back of the van. This is all witnessed by a neighbor. Neighbor never reports it. The only reason we found out is after the burglary was reported, we went to the neighbors' homes to do an area check, and we asked, did you see anything suspicious? And the neighbor told us, yeah, I saw a guy back in. I saw them go around the back. I saw the door open. And when we asked why he didn't think to report it, he said he thought that it was someone that was there to help him out. And that could be, right? We have people that help us. We have friends that watch our homes. We have people that may do work and service at our homes. So there's lots of reasonable explanations for why someone may be there. But if you see something suspicious, call us out there. We'll go check on it. Not a big deal. We respond to those all the time. All right, the OBD2 port hack. This is where an OBD2 port is a port inside your car. It's usually underneath the steering column, and I have a picture of it to show you, at least one example. But it's an onboard diagnostic port, and what it allows technicians to do is diagnose things that may be wrong with your engine or your transmission, and it will help produce codes that will tell them what specifically is wrong with your car. So, the check engine light comes on, a mechanic may plug a device in there, and then they can tell you exactly what's wrong, if it's a sensor of some sort or if there's some major mechanical problem, but it'll tell you what is wrong. Criminals can use that to bypass the alarm and duplicate the key, right? So you need that key to start the car. If you don't have a key, it won't start. And this is one of the ways they're doing it. So how can you prevent against that? Some of the easiest things you can do is just get you go on Amazon, you get a OBD2 port lock or cover. It's like a little locking cover for it. And all you're trying to do is take the advantage away from the opportunistic thief. You can also, and I saw this online, you can actually relocate the OBD2 port. And so there's, you can put like a dummy port up there and then relocate the primary port somewhere else, and you can have a mechanic do that. Security software, some cars have that. I know on ours, there's the capability, if you want, to have the vehicle require a passcode before you can start it. So you get in the car, you press the little start button, it'll prompt you for the code, you put your code in, and then you can drive it. Also, and this has helped us a lot in the recovery side, is if you have the ability to track your vehicle. A lot of newer cars, you can do like a subscription service, or frankly, it comes free. You can track where your vehicle is. And when we've had cars that were stolen, in fact, those 2 that we found in Fremont, it was because the owner had the tracking software installed and running. We were able to go recover those cars the same day. So we had our detectives go out there and get tow trucks and bring them back. And then just the regular security practices that we mentioned before, as far as where you park your car, park in well-lit areas, and those sort of things. So anything you can do to help out. All right, I'm going to check the chat and see if there's any questions. All right, so Eric says, Danville veterinarians remind us not to leave bobcats in the car as a deterrent during the hot months. That's true. And then many EVs don't have OBD2 ports, as they only legally required on ICE vehicles, i.e. Tesla does not have a working OBD2 port. It is interesting. So Eric, I'm not a car guy. I'll admit this, but I think there is a port that you can access, and there's 2. But what Tesla does is they're hidden. Like one, you have to open up the front and you have to tear up the front part. You have to take off some of the panels to actually expose it. And another one is in that kind of the back side of the center console. And again, you have to pull off some panels to expose that port. And that port is actually what allows you to put a screen there if you wanted to, like in your 3 or your Y. Again, I'm not a huge car guy, so I don't even know what you can use those ports for, but I know they have the ability to access the car in some way. But the reason I point this out is because you had mentioned Tesla. They're hard to get to. And I think that's the trick, is in a lot of the ICE vehicles, they're really easy to get to. They're just right under the steering wheel. And we've seen it on video from cars that were stolen here in Danville, where they'll bust the moonroof. They'll bust that out. They'll crawl into the car. They'll go right into that OBD2 port, program a key real quick, and off they go. And they do it in under like a minute or 2. It just really doesn't take that long at all. All right, well, let's go over last month. We're going to go over our quarterly report, but last month, Lieutenant Heather Transu actually presented this to the council, and we'll have it up. We're having some difficulties with our website, but we're going to have it up on the website next week. And so if you want to see the full report, you can download it direct from the website. It is a good report. It's got some good information there. I think tonight I'm going to cover, we talked about, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the drones. We call them small unmanned aircraft systems, but they're drones. They're the ones that you fly and you can see things with. So check that out from the last show. But tonight is really a special one because we're going to talk about mental health. And so here's our update. This is what the cover looks like. And we'll cover mental health and outreach tonight. Here's what's important is this represents the total amount of mental health commitments year by year over a 10-year period of time. So if you look in 2014, we had 79. We spiked at about 128 in 2018, and then we've been, 80s and 90s for the last 5 years. So not bad. Our average commitment rate is 92, and we ended up somewhere around 80 or 81 this year. That 81 number is from projected from December 8th. So we didn't do too bad. But here's what I want to caution is that number simply means that a person was exhibiting behavior that rose to the level for an involuntary commitment. In other words, where we forcibly take people and we send them to the hospital. So in order to meet that criteria, you have to be unable to care for yourself, or a danger to yourself, rather, a danger to others, or gravely disabled. And you have to be in that condition due to a mental health condition. That sometimes is a hard standard to meet. Like we'll see a lot of people that are struggling with mental health. And I think we all know people that are struggling, but they don't meet that criteria. And so one of the things that Heather talked about is how do we, there's a gap between someone that's fully functioning, doing well, and then there's, the involuntary commitment. So there's a gap between there, right? And what we don't want is we don't want people to just continue along that path until they get to that now we're committing you stage. And so how do we intervene in there? And the sheriff and Contra Costa County Health has done a great job setting up a very productive mental health evaluation team. MET is what we call it. And really think of them as like case managers. And so a lot of times when we catch people that are in that in between, and sometimes we make referrals for people that are already 5150, but in that in between, what we'll do is we'll make referrals to our MET deputy who works side by side with a clinician. And we'll say, hey, this is someone that might need some additional services. And what they'll do, instead of waiting for a moment of crisis, because usually people call the police at the moment of crisis, like something bad is happening. What our MET team will do is they'll go out there at different times throughout the day or the week to try to catch the person or the family members when they're in a more rational state where they can maybe convince them to go seek treatment voluntarily, right? Because if we can intervene early, then a lot of times we can actually avoid going all the way up to that commitment side of things. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So although our involuntary commitments are relatively stable and flat, they're essentially trading sideways. It doesn't mean that there aren't things that we're working on to address mental health in the community, and then also to work on reducing that number as well. Now, what did it look like over the year? And I know a lot of people, you can read articles that talk about like seasonal trends and what does it look like? And is there a back to school trend or that? But let's take a look. I mean, we had a low of 2 total in March and then a high of 11 in September. But again, this is trading pretty flat. It's not, there's not like a huge winter spike. There's not a huge summer dip. So it is relatively flat. And although we did not do it this year, we have done it in the past where we'll look at a year or two, sometimes even 3 years at a shot. Most of these commitments that we see throughout the year, it's one and done. They're not repeats. They're not chronically going in. The ones that we see that are chronic and going in are usually from some of the homes that we have here, either that treat juvenile mental illness, maybe eating disorders and those sort of things. Those are the ones where we might see more repeated involuntary commitments. But as far as, your average resident in town, usually it's one and done and that's it. All right. So what are we doing on the front for outreach? In the last part of the year, we have National Night Out that occurs in August. We continue to run 2 to 3 times. We do Coffee with a Cop per month. And then we also do our Recess with the Cop. So while school is in session, once a week, we'll visit an elementary or middle school and we'll hang out with the kids, answer any questions, that sort of thing. The reason we don't do it at the high schools is the high schools get an officer there every day. We've got school resource officers that are embedded there. And so they're there every day. So if you take a look, those are some of our officers engaging with the community. The upper left and lower right, that's at some of our schools. The lower left, that's actually at National Night Out. The coolest guy in the department is always the guy with the motorcycle. So he's lucky because all the kids flock to his motorcycle. And that's our traffic sergeant, Sergeant Lang in the upper right. And he was actually super jazzed about serving coffee at Starbucks. Like that was a very coveted apron to be wearing. So So we really do enjoy that. And what it does is it gives us an opportunity to get feedback from all of you on what we can do better. If you look, there's a lot of ways that you can communicate with your police. I'm reachable by mail, by phone, carrier pigeon if you can get one to land on a roof. But we try to provide a lot of opportunities for all of you to engage and join all of us. And we feel that that relationship that we share with all of you is really what makes public safety work in Danville. And if you look, I don't usually mention this, but I know SafeWise didn't do it this year, but there's a couple of websites that are, again, listing Danville as the safest city in California and one of the safest cities across the nation. I think one website had, I think the population was from 30 to 100,000, and it listed Danville number 12 across the nation, one of only 2 California cities to make the top 20. So pretty good kudos to all of you. It's the culture that every resident and every visitor that comes to Danville creates that makes Danville such a safe place. And so kudos to all of you. Eric has a quick note here. It says Tesla did have its own terrible issues, though, where they had a poorly authenticated API where a guy in Germany could remotely unlock and start any Tesla they had the VIN for. Tesla has since fixed it. Yeah, the reason I wanted to read that out loud is I know there's a lot of hesitation. You get these internet-connected vehicles, and you get a lot of hesitancy behind, can my vehicle be hacked? And certainly there are some concerns, but it does seem like the companies work hard to resolve those as quickly as they can. I think there's a pretty big motivation to do that. All right, I'm checking the chat. I don't see any more questions, and so I think that's all we have for tonight, but I do want to go over our evergreen. Make sure you sign up for the community warning system, download the wildfire preparedness evacuation guide, make sure you log into the PG&E website. This is where you can get alerts for power outages, whether they're the PSPS or if they're once the power is off, that's where they're going to notify you of when it's going to come back. They'll even let you know when service technicians are going to be on scene and when they expect to have it completed. And then download the FEMA All Hazards Guide. This is just a good guide to go through with your family. Just run through it and then throw it in the drawer. And it's a good guide. A lot of good information in there. All right. Thank you. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. I hope everyone enjoyed the New Year's and had really a good holiday season. Again, I appreciate all the support on Facebook for Officer Tuan Lee from the Oakland Police Department. I can't think of anything more sad than losing an officer during a holiday season, someone that's respected in the community, a family member. It's not something that anyone expects to happen. We all, as police officers, we all go out into the community to serve, and we understand there's some risk there, but it is nonetheless very sad when it does happen. And this was an officer that was responding to a burglary, putting his life at risk, and so hearts and our thoughts and prayers go out to Officer Tuan Lee's family and his friends and his coworkers over at Oakland PD. One of you did ask for his GoFundMe page, so if you go to our Facebook post for Officer Tuan Lee, we did put the link in there that we found from the Oakland PD website. All right, so with that, thank you. We are 1010, but we're always 10-8 in service to all of you. Happy New Year, Danville.